Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to call to order the Public Works Committee meeting for Tuesday, April 26th, 2016. First order of business is roll call and determination of quorum. Brenda, please.
Doyle?
Here.
Estes? Here. Roberts? Weifenbach? Here. Wright? Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Brenda. Next order of business is to adopt the agenda. Are there any changes? I have a motion by Estes, second by Wright to adopt the agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Agenda is adopted. Now is the time for general public comment, which is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the committee on any issue not limited to items on the agenda. Action, however, will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on this agenda except by placement thereon by unanimous vote of the aldermen present. I have 0 general public comment forms. We will go ahead and move on to consent items numbers 1 through 16. Public comment is open. I have no speaker request forms. I will close public comment. Would any alderman like to remove any of consent items 1 through 16 for separate consideration? Alderman Weifenbach.
Number 5, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any others? I have a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of number 5 from Estes, second by Weifenbach. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Consent calendar is approved with the exception of number 5. Moving on to item number 5, which is the 5th Street and Catron Boulevard traffic signal modifications. Project estimated cost at $480,000. I will go to Alderman Weifenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd move to approve, but I want to add an addendum to this approval that we have a link to the bid package, or that we get the bid package at some point in time.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Motion by Weifenbach, second by Wright, to approve item number 5, contingent upon getting a link to, or you would like to request the bid package information?
Yeah, I want to know what this
Monday?
property, Madam Chair, is in Ward 1, and it has been, it's a significant road structure. It's one of the largest road structures in Rapid City, and I wanted to make sure I knew what was happening at this intersection. Thank you.
I see some squished eyebrows. No? Okay. Looks like is everybody clear then? Any further discussion? Mr. Estes.
I guess I'm not real sure. So we're authorizing staff to advertise for bids. So may I ask Dale Tech a question, Madam Chair?
Yes, you may. Mr. Tech?
Are the plans complete?
The plans, I believe, are at 95%. They're just in the process of getting all the front-end documents, the contract put together. I believe the bids will be opened in May sometime, so we'll do the official advertisement as we are required by state law to publicly advertise it. The plans will be available at Public Works.
Thank you. May I ask Alderman
Yes,
Weifenbach a question? Alderman Weifenbach, then are you wanting to have a look at the plans and approve them prior to going out for bid? Is that what you're asking for?
I just want to make sure that at some point we get to see it before it goes out to bid, that what it is that's being done. So,
well,
typically we have some sort of scope of work, Alderman Estes.
Well, normally once we authorize to go out for bids, we don't see anything until the bids are let and we approve and award it. Can I go back to Alderman, or excuse me,
if you don't mind.
Tech?
Yeah, we typically don't give a presentation on what the plans are until the plans are completed and they're bid. I'd be more than happy to sit down with any alderman or anybody from the public and go through the plans that aren't quite yet completed and show you exactly what the project entails.
I guess where I'm at is I know Alderman Weifenbach, this is an important project to you, and I guess is all I would ask Mr. Tech to do is that before it goes out for bid, to maybe call you and you guys sit down one-on-one and review what it's supposed to look like when it's done, or what they're asking. Would that be agreeable to you?
Alderman Estes, I wanted the whole council to be aware of what was happening at that intersection, or the link or something that says this is what we're proposing. I mean, if it's sent out to the public, it simply can be, if it's sent out for proposals, can it simply be linked to the agenda? I don't think anybody has any interest in stopping it. It needs to be done, but.
Mr. Tech?
I can certainly link a set of the plans to the either this agenda for council Monday night. The plans aren't finished, but they're 95%. Can certainly do that.
That would work with me if that works with
That's
you.
fine.
Okay, thanks, I yield.
Alderman Wright?
Hale, is this a totally city-funded project? Or is there DOT involved?
No, this is entirely city funds on this project.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion 5 carries. Thank you, gentlemen. We are now on to non-consent items 17 through 18. Public comment is opened. Once again, I have 0 speaker request forms, so I'll close public comment. Item number 17 is appeal of on-site wastewater disposal and treatment permit per ordinance 13.20 from Kurt Anderson. I will yield the floor. I see some people approaching the podium. I didn't have any speaker request forms. Are you Mr. Anderson?
Yep.
Okay. If you would go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Dr. Kurt Anderson, 8855 Clarkson Road.
All right, sir. Please, when you're ready.
I received a notice that I have to apply for a permit for septic system. I've lived on 65 acres since 1998. Met all county requirements, and I don't know where you guys are headed with wanting a permit. And where does the ability of the city to all of a sudden try to enforce something like this?
Okay, so that would be your question, Mr.
Yeah.
Anderson? All right, thank you very much. Anything else you'd like to add before we open it up for deliberation up here?
Well, I'm the last one that wants to see water be polluted, okay? But the state and School of Mines did a big hydrological study on my property years ago. Every bit of water from my property flows south, away from the city. You people flow toward me. And so I'm not sure where you're headed.
Okay, thank you very much. Please stand by in case any of the members of the committee up here have questions for you, if you would.
Madam Chair, I'm George Farabee, and I'm here not as a private citizen, and not here as speaking for the Pennington County Board of Commissioners, but I am here as a District 1, and I'll repeat, I'm here as a District 1 County Commissioner, and this Dr. Anderson is one of my constituents. So I'm here on his behalf, as I was back in January on his behalf, contrary to what the records, what Alderman Weifenbach said. I was not here in a private capacity. I reviewed the tape of January 7th or 12th meeting, and I very clearly said, and Alderman Wright corrected you after the meeting, that I was here as a District 1 County Commissioner. This is just one sample of the ongoing problem with the 1 mile area, and I think we, the county and the city, need to get together and discuss how we're going to handle the 1 mile area. I've argued from day one that that statute that the ordinance relies on is being misinterpreted. I think it's time that we have that discussion, the county and the city. There's folks in the other side of town in District 4 that have contacted me, and they may come forward with an appeal like Dr. Anderson has. When Dr. Anderson called me, I said, let's appeal it. We went to the ordinance, found the appeal procedures, and that's why he and I are here today. Now, going forward, I think this thing should be appealed on to the city council for the entire council to make a recommendation as to the 1 mile area. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, just let me correct or reinforce the record that the item up for discussion right now is the appeal for Mr. Anderson. That is an entirely separate issue. So what I'll go ahead and do is turn it over to the committee for discussion or questions. Mr. Anderson, if you would please stand by.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. We need a motion or discussion. Mr. Estes, please.
I make a motion to deny the appeal, and if I get a second, I will like to retain the floor.
We have a motion to deny by Estes, a second by Wyffenbach. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Well, right now, what we're able to work within is the fact that we have control of permitting the septic tanks within a 1 mile radius. And by the map I've seen, no matter which way the ground flows, this particular address is within the 1 mile. Now, later on, if the county and the city, I think we've gone a long ways of having monthly meetings with meeting with the county and discussing various issues. And if the county as a whole wants to talk about this, then I think we'll have those discussions. But right now, I'm inclined to work within the what I think are the parameters that we have right now. And I guess if I could, may I ask Mr. Nyberg, or
Certainly.
City Attorney Nyberg, am I all wet, or do you have anything to add to this?
No, I think you're correct. Our ordinance is based on a state law that allows us to regulate up to 1 mile outside of our municipal boundaries. We've taken advantage of that in some instances, and some instances we haven't. The on-site wastewater permitting system is part of that, where we've made clear in the ordinance we regulate out 1 mile. It's, that's perhaps a decision for you to make in the future if you want to keep doing that, if the county wants you to keep doing that. But as of today, that is the way the ordinance and the law stands.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Go to Alderman Wyffenbach, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm not sure what Mr. Farabee was alluding to earlier. But the last conversation that we had when someone brought this forward, and I guess I'm trying to understand, Mr. Anderson, what specifically are you looking to do? And let me preface that with saying that if the county has the same, it's either a jurisdiction from the county or the city, and the county and the city jointly agreed that the 1 mile, the city would handle it. So is your,
Well, I
You with
have
the
to
city
pay,
handling it?
I have to pay a permit, and you go 50 yards down the road, they don't pay one.
I'm sorry, Mr. Anderson.
I have to pay a permit through the city,
Yes.
and if you go 50 yards down the road, they don't have to pay one, because they're outside the 1 mile.
No, they do. They pay it to the county.
I've never had to pay anything before in the past. And I saw the
County-
screenshot,
the reason-
I saw the screenshot on my property from the city, and it said I had a permit that expired in 2014. I've never had a permit with the city.
No, I'm not sure exactly what year it took place, but either you're going to do it through the city or you're going to do it through the county. So it's the same difference. I'm not sure what you're
The
trying
only
to.
time I've ever done anything is when I
I can
pulled
tell you,
the
Mr.
permit.
Farabee should be aware of that. So I would say, Mr. Anderson, I'm not exactly sure where your property is. If you could kind of explain to me where it is versus.
Out Sheridan Lake Road where Whispering Pines Fire Station is,
Okay.
south of that, and then to the west.
Okay. South and to the west. So you have neighbors that are upstream too, right?
Correct.
Right. And so
And-
they have to have their septics also inspected, so they're not infiltrating into your water system. It was one of the reasons that the city and the county went to this joint coordinated effort, and they felt that the county agreed at the time, and if they were ever willing to have that conversation, we had this particular conversation, and Mr. Farabee was present, that said that if the county wants to change the mind on that, then I'm not sure if that conversation, it hasn't taken place evidently. So, and Mr. Anderson, I would, so either way, you're going to have, and my understanding is you're going to have either the county or the city. So it's the same difference. It's just I'm not sure I understand what you're
That
trying to
wasn't my
do.
understanding. If that's the way it is, that's the way it is. But I have other there's like cattle grazing all over.
Right, I understand. And
How do we handle that?
Mr. Anderson, I'm going to ask our city attorney a question. Am I correct that either if he's in the county, either the county's going to do the inspection fee, or because he's within the 1 mile, the city's going to do the inspection. Is that what we're alluding here? And I don't understand what the appeal would be. He doesn't want it at all? Or,
Well, yeah, you're correct in that he'd have to pay it to the city or to the county. The county does have an exception, a limited exception for larger than 40 acres of unplatted land, but I think in this case it's platted. So I don't think it would apply.
so this 65 acres is platted?
I believe it is.
I've never paid it in the past.
And I understand that, Mr. Anderson, but I would reach out, someone in our office here to maybe better understand how that works, because either you're going to have the county do the same thing the city's doing, and the reason that they did it was the combined efforts they thought was overlapping. So to save resources, the county and the city came together and said within a 1 mile radius, the city would handle it. So I think maybe if you have a heartburn after that, maybe. So that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. And if I may, since I see no other lights, Mr. Tech or Mr. Nyberg, could you quick refresh our memories on the cost of that inspection fee, or
It's
Mr.
$20.
Tech? Is that accurate? $20?
Yes, $20.
Okay, thank you, sir. And it is the same for both city and county?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no other discussion, the motion on the floor is to deny this appeal for Mr. Anderson. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion to deny the appeal carries. Item number 18 is to approve the dead or diseased tree removal program. Mr. Bigler, do you have a presentation for us?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. I would first like to introduce, for those of you who have not met, this is our urban forester, Andy Bernard. And Andy's been working closely with our urban forestry board to develop this new proposed tree program that's before you for approval. And with that, I would like Andy to go ahead and take a crack at it, and we'll both stand by for questions afterward.
I believe it's in front of you, the proposal. Coming on the job June of last year, just driving around town working with code enforcement, I noticed a lot of dead or dying trees within the right-of-way or the visual corridor of many of our streets. We already had a removal program associated with mountain pine beetle trees, but we didn't have a program associated with the rest of trees in town, whether they are dead, dying, or diseased. Many communities our size have programs in place to help with the removal of certain trees. The trees that would qualify for a program like this, I have laid out individually in the program. It's just bringing us up to speed on getting ahead of any invasives that do show up and cleaning up the streets that we have now. Any questions you have, I'd be more than willing to answer them.
Mr. Wright, please.
I was at the meeting where it was discussed, but do we have a package before us? I don't think we do we? We need a copy of what you're talking about for the committee.
Should be linked. My computer's broken, or I would show you.
Computer. I don't have my computer here. You have copies with you? Okay. It said it was with us, and I don't have it. Maybe it's been attached, but I don't have a copy of it.
Computer.
I was aware of it. If you read it, I read it. Bring some copies Monday night too, will you? Thank you.
Mr. Weifenbach?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think I did look at the link, and maybe not as extensively, but trying to understand what the funding source was going to be for it.
The Parks Department currently has a cost center that's urban forestry. And so there is a line item in there for refunds and reimbursements, and that's the line item that has been used for the mountain pine beetle refund and reimbursement. So it is already a budget and a line item that is in place. We currently have funding for this year, and it will be going before you at budget time for reallocation, I guess. This is actually taking an existing program that just covered the mountain pine beetle problems and expanding that throughout the entire city that would take care of any diseased or dying trees, still including mountain pine beetle if those are discovered, but broadening the scope of what would be eligible for reimbursement.
So it's a line item that put in the
Correct.
budget, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Mr. Wright?
Thanks, Andy. I just think it's a great idea, and to expand beyond the pine beetle, understanding the pine beetle will still is a diseased tree or infected tree that will be addressed. And I want assurance that we're going to continue to work with the Rapid City Fire Department and the Wildland Interface Fire Prevention Program, because the combination of the two have been tremendously successful. And not only thinning and preventing fire, but also the pine beetle issue. And if we look at the cost of one house that could potentially lost in a wildfire, we're getting a huge return in protection. So I support it. I think it's a great idea, and keep us informed. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Estes.
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Estes, second by Wright. Any further discussion or questions?
Be prepared.
Did you catch that?
Yes.
Okay,
Monday
thank you,
night.
sir. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? All opposed? Same sign. Motion carries.
Move to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn by
Second.
Estes, second by Wyffenbach. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? I'm going to take that as an aye. We are adjourned.